make a motion
They're
on the
so
mic.
quiet.
I'm not sure.
These are both mine.
Have two halfway.
You brought one in.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to City Council meeting today on May 17th, 2022. We appreciate all of you being, and we got some good ceremonies happening today too. So we'll start off our council meeting by an inspirational thought and prayer given by Becky Nepper, who is a great member of our community, but also our veterans, our what do we call it? American Legion. Sorry, it left me, Becky.
I'm actually the commander, the first female commander.
We appreciate you.
So my spiritual thought, as we head into the Memorial Day weekend, I find that a spiritual thing. As a soldier, patriotism and spirituality kind of mesh for me. So I wanted to let the community know what we have planned. Thursday, the 26th, at 3 o'clock, we're setting up Flanders Field. If you haven't been there or seen that, you're missing out, and you need to go there and help set it up, and certainly go by and see those beautiful flags waving. We have over 1,800 crosses that we put up for our veterans. Our Memorial Day programs on Monday, we start in Salem at 8 o'clock in the morning, then Benjamin at 9 o'clock, and then at 10:30 at our cemetery, we have an actual program. This year we have Richard Nilsson, who is from Spanish Fork, graduated in 1969, and he's the founder of Rocky Mountain University of Medical Professions. And he will be talking to us. He's also served 20 years in the Navy, so he's a fellow veteran, which I like. And this year, for a few minutes, Representative Burgess Owens will be there and talk to our veterans. So we're quite honored to have him participate with us this year. And then on Tuesday, we take down the Flanders Field. So I'm always impressed by what a wonderful community we have and what wonderful support and what patriotism our community has. And with that, I guess I'll thank our Heavenly Father. Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. Mostly at this time, we thank Thee for the liberties that we enjoy and for the leadership that we have. We thank Thee for our mayor and our council people that make the best decisions for our community. And we ask you this time to guide them, that they will continue to do what is best for our community. We also want to thank thee for our veterans and our first responders, and ask you to bless them, that they will be able to protect us and return to their loved ones without any harm. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commander Nipper. We'll follow Councilwoman Beck in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand and repeat the pledge after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a full house tonight, and it's for great occasions like this. We promise we're working, not us personally, but the construction folks are working fast and furious next door to have a council chambers in our library hall in a year from now that we'll be able to seat everybody comfortably. But it's on occasions like this that it is fun to see the room full and the next event that we get to participate in. So that'll take us to item C, the ceremonial oath of office for new police officers in Spanish Fork, and our very own Chief Matt Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a privilege to be here this evening with you and to introduce our 4 recent graduates from the Police Academy. These 4 outstanding individuals, they graduated the Police Academy on April 29th. They're currently in their field training process. They're excelling at their duties. They're a great asset to the city and the police department, and we're proud to have them as officers here in the community. In today's society, it's very difficult to find people that are willing to serve and protect our community, and we've been very fortunate to find these 4 individuals that are willing to do that. I'm very proud of them and look forward to them serving here in our city, and we're just excited to have them on board with us. So with that, I just want to thank their family members for being here this evening as well. This is a very difficult profession, and without the support of the family, we're not able to do our jobs, but they're very supportive, and you can see that this evening by the attendance here. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Davin Nilsson. Davin, would you stand up, please? Is your wife Dixie here? Dixie, would you stand up? Okay, thank you. Davin, he was actually awarded the Academic Excellence at the Police Academy, and you can go ahead and be seated. Bryce Feevold, would you please stand, and his wife Abby? Thank you. Go ahead and be seated. Zandon Dennison. Thanks, Zandon. And he doesn't have a wife, so.
This is on television. You might get some phone calls.
And then Austin DeGrod, his wife Delaney. Thank you. So with that being said, I will let you administer the oath of office to our new officers. Thank you.
Stand over here, me over here. What's the angle there? Travis, how do you want these?
If the officers can come right here.
Yeah.
And if you talk into the mic, Mayor.
I'll talk into the mic. Okay, now, when, I'm not gonna say I and then state your name. I'm just gonna I. When I nod your head, that means state your name. Have they got that so far, Chief? They take instructions?
This is a test, so we'll see.
Okay, all right. Okay, raise your right arm. I. All right, let's start over. After I say I, you're gonna say I, and then when I nod my head, you're all gonna say, don't say each other's name, say your own name. I.
Austin DeGraw.
Good enough?
Yep.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Welcome, thanks for coming.
Hey, if you can grab your families and come stand right up here, we'll stand behind you and we'll get a picture. Always. All right? Grab your families and see if you can fit in right up there.
We want this back? Okay.
All of you, all of you.
Do we trust Slay with this?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There we go. Okay.
Congratulations,
Thanks again.
guys. Thank you.
Congrats.
Welcome to Spanish.
She just said it was quicker, and you are welcome to stay. We'll probably be here till midnight. You know? Yeah. Follow your lieutenants. They're like, yeah, no. They know.
Check.
See you later. Thank you.
I know I brought one in, but I don't know what the
I
other.
brought one, so I'm thinking yours.
Thank you.
Let's start with this one. So, Mayor, when we stand behind them like that, does that signify that we have their back?
We got their back. Yep. We don't even have to put it on the picture, but you could hold up a sign that said, "We back the blue." Because we literally, maybe that's maybe that's the post.
Do that.
We could do that.
Back the
We
blue.
literally back the blue.
We know how to clear a meeting too, don't we?
You do that.
Now there's room for everybody.
Say we know how to clear out the room.
Yeah. Off and writing tickets and doing their thing. So, okay. That'll take us to item number 6, public comments. Now that we've cut the room in a third at least, or half, is there anybody from the public that would like to address the mayor and council? Maybe someone from outside? No, it's Dave. Okay. With nobody want to take part of public comments, we'll move on to council comments. Councilman Gordon?
Mayor, the only thing I want to point out since tonight's a marathon is that we had over 1 million tons of garbage in our cleanup.
Ooh.
500, did I say tons? Pounds. 500 tons. Chad's trucking world started cringing there. 502 tons, over 1 million pounds of garbage. So, way to go, Spanish Fork. The sports park dumpsters were the busiest of all down at that parking lot. So, what's that? Town feels a little cleaner. So thank you all for participating in that. I would be derelict if I didn't have something I said about garbage.
I patronized 3 of the locations just for convenience.
Good
of
boy.
Where it was.
Good job,
Just
Mayor.
to check it.
That's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilman Argyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to express a thanks to, last week we had the Freedom Walk for the 5th graders in our town, the elementary schools. We have 10 of them. Had an opportunity to go there. That's put on. They get an opportunity to ask some questions and rub shoulders with our veterans in our community. And it's such a great service and such a cool project. And they get to just be there and learn a few things about our veterans and how they served from each one of our military units. And it's such a cool thing. And this year they recognized Richard Johnson and named it after him. Him and some of the others were instrumental in getting this going, and it was our 5th year. Had to skip a couple of years because of COVID, but this year we got back on it, and it was a beautiful day, and grateful to the Legion and the veterans. There's a lot of work to put that on, and they did a good job, and we're grateful that they do that in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Euler.
My turn. Just want to echo what Councilman Argyle said with the Freedom Walk. It was a privilege for me to be able to spend the day up there with the fifth grader of my own and spend some time with her and be able to listen to our veterans. I'm grateful for Nebo School District and for the American Legion for putting that on. It was a privilege to be there. And then final thing for me, I just wanted to recognize and congratulate Booth Music as being the Spanish Fork Area Chamber of Commerce Business of the Month for May. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilman Marshall.
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Councilwoman Beck.
Dang, I have a couple things.
It's all right.
Okay. The first one is going to be good. Can we share the video?
Second one, not so
No, they're all good, but we did a ribbon cutting at the Hive, new trampoline park here in Spanish Fork. And I was recording Council Member Euler on a trampoline race. Let's just share that. I think it's a good one.
We don't need to.
Let's do.
And is
So
that a
hopefully,
problem?
hopefully it won't work, right? Oh, no.
Oh, he's competing against Lance Wilson on the right. Kevin's the one on the left. Look at him go. Isn't that fun?
Oh, jeez. Covered under work comp, are we?
I almost did. It was close.
Serious style points.
And I took my 3-year-old grandson down there today. It's going to be so much fun. So
It's a cool
welcome to the
place.
community.
Yeah.
And echoing everyone else, the Freedom Walk was amazing. We were able to visit with Annalee Johnson, the late Richard Johnson's wife, and be with them. So we appreciate that. Library Hall, you don't need to show any of the Freedom Walk. Oh, there they are. Library Hall, I had a minute to go walk through that real fast with Kim Hall and our Assistant City Manager. And I know our library director is going to speak in Spanish Fork 101 and tell you about the summer reading program, but the library is on schedule to open next spring. And look at the views. That's going to be a balcony right there over Main Street, and it's beautiful. So I look forward to a year from now. And a big congratulations. We have some region champions here in Spanish Fork. ALA took region, 3A region champs, and Spanish Fork High School, baseball and softball region champs. And then ALA actually took second in state. So a lot of fun times right now. Lots of parents running their kids all over the city and state in these championship games, and it's lots of fun to go watch them. And I think that's all I have.
Spanish and Maple Mountain playing each other this week, is that right?
Spanish and Maple Mountain playing each other Thursday, and then for sure Friday too at Nelson Field.
Field, okay.
Yep, down there. So the
For a state championship or playoffs?
entrance into it, playoffs
Okay.
into it.
Okay.
So they play 3 games if they need to. So best of 3 to get into state, and it's 2 Spanish Fork teams. Go figure. How does that line up? So.
Pretty great. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Life comes at you pretty fast. Natalie Banks Fevold sitting there, the mom of Bryce Fevold. It seems like yesterday, her and I were in the children's parade coming down Main Street. I don't know how we got convinced to do this, but we were dressed up as a married couple standing
You
on a
better
float.
When was this?
It's when we were just little kids. I'll get you the picture later.
You want to start that out.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Yeah, this wasn't last year. No, we're both happily. Oh, there she is. Yeah, see, I was hoping you hadn't left. Yeah. It's true, isn't it? You can, yes, we were husband and wife on a float, and we had to be what, 5, 6 years old? I don't know. Old enough that our parents tricked us into stand here and then hold hands for a whole 2 hours. Yep. So, yeah. Now we're boys a cop. So go figure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's funny. She's still here. I don't know if I'd have said that if I'd have knew she was still here. ALA, yes, that was great to see them compete. Councilwoman Beck's nephew, Gage, is part of that team. I thought, oh, there's a picture of Nash and his buddy and Jagger, Gage. It was fun to see him get in and do some running and some pitching there in the state tournament. And just congratulations, Coach Johnson, Coach Ward, and all of the ALA Eagles on a great season. They say themselves they were not picked to go that far, and they certainly exceeded all expectations and played their hearts out, hit the ball well, and played good baseball. You wouldn't know anything about that, Councilman Marshall, but I do. Baseball. And that was a great day to watch them. So, yes, Maple Mountain High School, Spanish Fork High School, Thursday and Friday down at Nelson Field. It'll be on Channel 17. Right, Travis? We'll be, if you can't make it down to the field, watch it live on Channel 17. One last thing before we move on to 101. We had one of our oldest, if not our oldest, I'm not sure, resident in Spanish Fork that passed away last week in the McKell family. Mark McKell, 103 years old. I can't remember how many days, but
7 months.
7 months? Almost making it to 104. But what a gentleman, what a pillar of the community, and always a man that was there to help with anything that had to do with veterans, but also one of my favorite SFCN commercials is the one with fiber, when we came out with fiber, you know?
Yeah.
And he played the old man really well. I think he was 100 years old when he did that.
And
but
he was eating fiber cereal, right?
Yeah. So it was a great play on words and helped us and his granddaughter Ashley and Mike and the whole McKell family obviously respects to a great man, a great life, well lived, and a great family here in town. So our thoughts and prayers are with that family, but I'm sure he's having some happy reunions. So, okay, Spanish Fork 101 takes us to our library summer reading program. Mr. Director Scott Aylett.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me tonight. It's always a pleasure to come and speak with you guys. And tonight we're talking about our most exciting time of the year. Our most exciting time of the year next year will be obviously when Library Hall opens, but the summer is our busiest time because of, one, our summer reading program, but families are always looking for things to do during the summer months. So you've heard this before, but I'll reiterate it for maybe residents that are listening who haven't heard this, or for our new council members, but various studies have shown that during the summer months, school-aged children lose on average about a month of what they learned the previous school year. So they get back to school in the fall, they spend about that first month just going over everything that they forgot over the summer, getting them up to speed, because summer rolls around and vacations and playing outside and doing a lot of worthwhile things, but they lose a lot of what they learned the previous year. And so one of our intents and purposes of the summer reading program is to encourage school-aged children, but also teens and adults, to read during the summer months, so that they lose less when they get back to school. There's less time spent relearning some of those things. And so this year, the overall summer reading theme is kind of an underwater theme, and our take on it is a 20,000 reads under the sea. So our goal as a community is to read 20,000 books from May till August, and that's for all ages, right? We talk a lot about the school-age children, but we talk about adults, we talk about teens, and so this year the goal is as a community to read 20,000 books. For children, for them to complete the program, that's about 10 books. Over the summer for teens and adults, it's about 5 books. We've got a lot of awesome prizes. We'll do bi-weekly as well as weekly drawings for the different age groups. For the children, when they complete, they get a free book and some other fun prizes. This year for the teens and the adults, we're going to do something new. We've got a treasure chest that's full of a bunch of different gift cards, many of which are to local businesses who have donated to the program. And when you complete the program, come draw a gift card out of the treasure chest, and you'll walk away with between $5 or $100 to a local business that has supported the summer reading program. We have a lot of other grand prizes, Little Giant Ladders. This is the second year that they've donated a ladder that we'll give away to the adult program. We've got some AirPods and some other prizes we purchased a couple bicycles that we'll give away as grand prizes for our children's department. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention the countless businesses in the community that have year after year stepped up to the plate and been advocates and huge supporters of the summer reading program. We have a lot of new names this year. One that Stacy mentioned was the Hive is a new sponsor and supporter of the summer reading program. So we're so thankful for the local businesses that help make this summer reading program not only a success, but also something that we can actually do every single year. To sign-ups start next week. You can sign up old school at the library, do it the paper way, the old-fashioned way. One thing that we're really excited about this year is a new app that we'll have. It's called Beanstack, where families or individuals can track their progress using this app or online. And the progress that they do there also counts towards, say, if you're doing the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, that's really popular for the young age group. A new program that will start in the fall is 1,000 Books Before Graduation for middle, junior high, and high school students. Some other programs. So those, your progress that you make on one program will count towards the rest. So again, come to the library starting next week and sign up for the summer reading program. We'll have our completion party this fall in August with the return of the widely popular the Director Dunk Tank. So come, if you participate and complete the program, come this fall and you can dunk me in a big old tank of water. But we're excited for the summer reading program. It's our busiest time of the year, and just encourage families and individuals to keep up on their reading, and is a source of entertainment this summer along with everything else, but kind of keep up on those things that you learned over the school year. So
We're going to shield your children and Tyler's children away from seeing dads get dunked, because I think that affected them. They were not happy.
well, maybe we just need to recruit someone else that has
He's got
children
grown-
that probably won't be
children.
as
Oh, yeah.
nervous, Mayor Mendenhall or another council member. This year, we will actually have 2 dunk tanks because the line was so long last year.
I
We got
haven't-
2 dunk
Yeah.
tanks this
I
year.
haven't told these guys yet, but there is a council member that lined up a dunk tank for Fiesta Days, and the mayor and council will all be down there participating
Nice.
this year. They don't know yet, but I think they just found out.
Well, they'll be well-versed and
Yeah,
practiced
yeah.
at it, so
Marshall
come.
likes jumping in the water.
Yeah.
So if we, let's
There's
do
2
a
new
mud
council
jump.
members and 2 tanks.
Yeah, there you go. Just rotate, too.
Yep.
I'm not listening to you.
Anyway, thank you guys for your time. We appreciate it and encourage residents to come out and participate in the summer reading program.
Thank you, Scott.
Scott.
Great program. Thank you. Great program, running a great library, and going to have a great new space coming up, but doing wonders with what you've got. So thank you. Okay, that takes us to item number 9, consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle, to approve the consent items. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Consent items pass. We're down to number 10, public hearing. The first item on public hearing, item A, is ordinance for the Spanish Highlands East zone change and preliminary plat approval. Proposal involves approving a zone change from rural residential to R112 and preliminary plat for master plan development with some 119 homes. The subject property contains 46 acres located at 100 South Spanish Fork Parkway. David Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. The subject property in this case is located south of Maple Mountain High School. As I think you just mentioned, about 46 acres. The applicant has proposed that the zoning be changed from rural residential to R112. The R112 zone is consistent with pretty much everything that's around it, except that on the east side of Spanish Fork Parkway, which borders this property on the east side, everything heading out towards Spanish Fork Canyon in that direction is zoned or is planned to be zoned R115. So again, subject property right here, just south of Maple Mountain High School. Incidentally, Spanish Highlands East is adjacent to the original Spanish Highlands development, which the same applicant, Ivory Homes, developed, give or take about 10 years ago. A little closer view on the property. And getting right to the point here. This layout that you see is the result of a couple of different iterations that staff reviewed. We were particularly concerned about creating a street network that provided good access throughout this neighborhood, that connected it to adjacent existing residential developments to the south and to the west, while being sensitive to not wanting to create situations where there was some propensity to cut through this neighborhood, or otherwise to create just long, straight stretches of streets that don't have some physical things in them that encourage people to drive a little bit more slowly. There is one change that has yet to be made to this particular design. It has to do with plans for a roundabout that would be located right here. That would be one of two roundabouts on Spanish Fork Parkway in this part of the community. The other one would be near Holiday Oil to the south of this site. And that being said, let me just reiterate that this project is being proposed as a master plan development. With this design does meet the criteria for master plan developments in the R112 zone. That includes having an average lot size of 12,000 square feet. And staff and the Planning Commission both have recommended that both the proposed zone change and preliminary plat be approved.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave before we go into public hearing? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck,
Second.
and seconded by Councilman Euler to go into public hearing. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We are in public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come up and speak to this item? Please state your name so we get you on the record.
Yeah, it's August Bigelow. I live in the neighborhood just below it. It's more of a general curious question. It was at the Planning Commission. There was a lot of discussion about the tree, and so I'm curious as to whatever we found out about that tree. That's kind of what I'm curious about. So,
perfect. We'll wait for
Tree's got a name. Steve. You can't just call it the tree. You call him by his name.
Steve the tree.
Thank you, Mr. Bigelow.
I like it.
All right, anybody else that wants to speak to this item on the agenda? Going once, going twice? All right, I go out of public hearing. Motion made by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Argyle to go out of public hearing on item A. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We are out of public hearing. Discussion back up here. Do you want to speak to Steve the tree first before we ask you other questions?
Sounds like I do. Yeah, to be as I can. Asked the gentleman that's kind of our in-house tree expert to go and take a look at the tree. He did that, and as well as we did some research with the Utah State historic folks, and found that in all likelihood the tree is probably about 50 years old. It quite probably is a volunteer tree that wasn't necessarily planted by anybody, but just kind of landed there and has grown and has been allowed to grow. The health of the tree is suspect, and we are not under any, that is, we as the city, neither would any property owner be under any obligation to keep the tree. It's kind of a dismal assessment, so not necessarily the most fun to describe, given what clearly is some type of an emotional connection that neighbors have with Steve the tree. That being said, the applicant has a lot of opportunities to somehow try to maybe protect the tree, keep it, anything of that sort. Yet, if that were to happen, again, based on Bill Bushman's assessment, we understand there's a pretty high likelihood that Steve the tree has lived a great life, and that regardless of what anybody does at this point, it probably is closer to its end than its beginning.
Okay.
And relative to trees, I have to point this out, that with master plan developments, developers are required to plant a certain number of trees. In this case, with 119 homes, that's probably going to be about 200. Now, I know that 200 trees might not have, again, the emotional kind of value that one tree like this one has had, but maybe that's worth considering.
Thank you.
Dave, I got a question for you. Well, I don't know if Chris is still here. Did he sneak out? But in planning commission meeting, they talked about with the roundabout concern when school gets out of this road backing up, and then people using, if you want to go back to where you were, Nick, yeah, sorry, people using this road to cut through. I guess my question is, if a roundabout's going to be here, which will shorten or cut down on this lot, does it make sense, or is this access necessary?
Yeah, that access is there for a couple of different reasons, including some existing utilities.
Okay.
So as placed, it lines up well between a couple of driveways that are across, given that it's offset enough that it would limit the kind of conflict that you might have if people were making left-hand turns simultaneously and that type of movement on the street. So its placement there is important from a couple of different perspectives, and certainly I wouldn't doubt one bit that some people will cut through from time to time here. One of the expectations with the roundabout versus a four-way stop like we have now is that traffic will move much more continuously through that intersection, so that in the event that traffic does back up, it will be, and speaking somewhat hypothetically, right, that this cut through will be much less attractive, maybe than just being part of that continual movement to simply make a right and go south. So certainly, I acknowledge that there's some probability that that will happen from time to time, but we don't view that necessarily is going to be like any significant number, significant volume of traffic at a particular time of day, which probably will be PM when people are leaving the school.
Another question I've got, sorry, Chad. It was talked about the trail system, which will run along here, and then it dies right here, and then they're expected, I guess, to use the sidewalks and get back on right here. The question was brought up of why not just continue it down that road? What'd you guys decide on that?
I think continuing it, maybe in between the backyards of homes in the original Spanish Highlands and Spanish Highlands East, like is proposed here. I think that's viable, and yet I think both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have felt that long stretches that create maybe an isolated corridor, and even if it's 20 or maybe even wider than that, 20 or 30 feet wide, they create space that is sometimes not ideal, or that otherwise we try to avoid creating.
Have your trails in public eye where people are visible, things like that.
That is always the preference, yes.
That makes sense.
And yet, there also are some benefits by way of having trails that aren't crossing driveways, from lot to lot and that sort of a thing. But all in all, I think we felt like the most appropriate approach here to make a trail connection ultimately from First South down to the trail that runs along US Highway 6 was to use the sidewalks both with what would be constructed with this development and what also exists right here, both of which could tie into a couple of connections that we have through the public street there on the south to the trail, again, that kind of runs along the railroad tracks now. I don't know that the applicant has a strong feeling one way or another, but both staff and the Planning Commission seem to be on the same page that this was probably the best approach.
Okay.
Are they planning for the roundabout so that we're not having to acquire property in the future?
The applicant's engineer represented that they have no concerns with modifying their plan to provide the needed additional right-of-way for a roundabout. Certainly, as these lots are designed here, they could accommodate that additional dedication and still have a very adequate building envelope for a home on those lots.
I believe 50 years is probably underestimated because the shade was really nice during the summer when watering, and that's been 50 years ago, and that tree was there.
There you have it.
He was there.
Actual
He was
testimony
there.
about the life. Nobody will argue that.
Found out who planted it.
No, I didn't, it was there. It was just easy to pull down there in your truck and let
Was
the
it by
shade-
itself? Has it been out there
Always
like that?
been by itself that I
Really?
remember. There used to be an apple tree that was out on the road. Charlie Olson, he's passed away, but he'd run his truck and just park it just like that, run it right, and you'd almost think, because he was elderly in his 80s, and you'd have to stop once in a while and make sure, but that's just where he took his nap. So there was just 2 trees on that property. And that's just always been down that lane.
Dave, can you tell us where the nearest parks are to this development? It's not here.
There is a city park that's on the south side of the Sierra Bonita, the Maple Mountain townhomes. The townhomes that are just south of the Sierra Bonita Elementary School. Maybe Nick, if you could go back to our big map, the wide angle.
You need to orient. You want me to tell you where we
So,
are?
once again,
Rail side
we have
park.
Maple Mountain High School right here.
Right.
We're talking about the property that's outlined in yellow. So the closest
Remember, I'm
parks
the
to
one
that
asking the
property.
question, not Shane.
Sorry.
I'm with you.
There's a city park right here. And there is,
Planted a lot of new trees.
right, yeah, Arbor Day.
Arbor Day, yep.
On the north side of the Sierra Bonita Elementary School, we have, I think we call it the Sierra Bonita Park, right? Sierra Park. Thank you. There are plans for a park as well, right here on this property. I think that was discussed as part of the 2023 budget, making those improvements. And that's what I'm aware of in terms of parks that are in close proximity to this property. Pretty good access, via trail network to get to those different parks. And as properties continue to develop in the area, we have a Parks and Recreation part of our general plan that provides some description as to where parks should be in order to maintain some level of service goals that we have by way of providing a certain amount of park space in a certain proximity to homes throughout the community. So I suspect that as development continues, those conversations will go on, and there will be other parks in the area as well.
Thank you.
Just one final question from me. Sorry, Mayor.
You're right.
100 South, maybe you can talk to the widening of 100 South. Will this change it from a 2 to a 3 lane, or will it still be two
Two
lanes?
lanes. Yes.
Okay, that was the last question I had.
That, back to that plat map, the part of this that I am pretty excited about as I live in the area over here is seeing, and I know this was this community that's been here probably 10 years now. The kids are growing up and they're going to high school. And so a lot of this has been past the church that's right here. And Councilman Gordon prides himself on walking in dirt out in Lake Shore for a long time, but these kids are in dirt in a field, and sometimes when the weather's not good, it's even worse, and that road, is not big enough because it's still just a country road. So like we've always said with development, it gets worse before it gets better, and this is an example of it certainly getting better, that is now going to provide sidewalk for all these kids, not just from this neighborhood, but this rather large neighborhood down here to get to and from the high school. So see them quite often on that, and it looks, we have development going on here too that's improving the other side, but that'll at least make those residents that live in there are probably a lot more pertinent to it than I am. But I've seen your kids walking that a long time and kind of made their own dirt sidewalk, but this will be a lot nicer to get improved and safer, so.
Was this ordinance numbered since the agenda was posted? I just see Z blank dash 22. Do you guys see any?
There is a number. So.
No? Okay.
Any other questions from up here about this development? Staff, Planning Commission in pouring over this and doing their research and their due diligence. If there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the proposed zone change for Spanish Highlands East. And preliminary plat be approved with the following conditions and findings: that the application conforms to the city's general plan designation and zoning map, that the applicant meets the city zoning requirements, construction standards, and the applicant addresses any red lines. The preliminary plat approval is contingent upon zone change approved by the city council.
Okay. Motion made by Councilman Gordon,
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman Beck. This is a roll call vote. Councilwoman Beck.
Aye. Yes.
Councilwoman Gordon.
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
That passes. Sorry, I heard that you were in the affirmative, but we're doing yes now.
Yeah, that's going to take 6 years to undo.
All right, that passes, takes us on to item B. Item B is an ordinance for the Hollow Acres zone change and preliminary plat approval. Proposal involves approving a zone change from rural residential to R112 and preliminary plat for master plan development with 11 homes. The subject property contains 5 acres located at 130 North Spanish Fork Parkway, just up the road. We're on the east side of town today, Dave.
You could throw a baseball from one project to the next, right? Or
I could.
maybe hit one?
Yeah, I could.
Pretty close.
You don't know who you're talking to.
Well, very close, yes. Just up the road, 5 acres, proposed to be developed with 11 lots for single-family homes. As with the previous proposal, master plan development, the proposal is to change the zoning from rural residential to R112. Pretty straightforward from that perspective. The applicant has designed it in such a way that, for example, we'll see this in just a second, conceivably this street, which ties into a property that's owned by Rocky Mountain Power right here, could eventually continue through to help create just a functional system of neighborhood streets, tying into Spanish Fork Parkway by way of coming through this connection here. So north is to our left on this image here, with Spanish Fork Parkway being right there. Not a lot to say about this.
Driveways are not off the parkway, right?
Correct, yes.
Parkway is the current frontage along the parkway on 130 South complete, or does this development finish it?
There are no improvements on this side of Spanish Fork Parkway north of the subdivision that's just south,
So
right there.
They're going to take care of it.
They will take care of it through this half or so
Okay.
of the subject property. This proposal would leave the remaining 5 of the 10 acres there undeveloped. And the improvements likewise would not be installed at this time.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Maybe to that point, Councilman Marshall, this will at least improve the intersection, where today you have the narrowness happen right at that intersection, so it'll allow for the roadway to bottleneck down further instead of at that intersection where it is certainly wonky today. I think that's a traffic term.
Wonky it is.
Yeah.
I love it when planners talk about traffic. It's awful fun. Wonky.
No roundabout here, Dave? We're doing roundabouts. No roundabout here?
No roundabout here.
Okay, no roundabout here. Okay, I would entertain a motion to go into public comment for this ordinance.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle,
Second?
seconded by Councilman Euler to go into public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing. Anybody from the public that wants to speak to this agenda item? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing. Any questions for Dave or staff on ordinance B, item B?
I just have a question for the applicant, which I think is here. I guess I'm just curious as to why you're only doing half of the property now.
remind us of your name.
Yeah, g'day, Dan Schmidt with WPI. We've toyed with this property over the last couple of years, a joint venture with the landowner, Scott Hansen. As Dave pointed out, Rocky Mountain Power is to the east, and we've tried to work with Rocky Mountain Power in trying to either develop their land, buy their land, or do something that jointly creates more value for the community. The difficulty with the piece, as with Rocky Mountain Power's piece, is you've got 150-foot wide power lines through the property. And while that's not necessarily uncommon up and down the state, what's unique about this particular property is the angle of the power lines. And so as you can see here, it touches the edge of this 5-acre development. So the north 5 acres becomes quite difficult, at least from a single-family home perspective. The intent is to develop this 5 acres and turn around and try and bring something else back to the community and the council and city body that develops the rest in a way that works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
So I have a question, maybe this is for Dave. If Rocky Mountain never wants to develop that, that means that they would never finish the street and sidewalks, right?
Correct. Not on Park.
Well, I was looking at 130 North because they don't own on Parkway, right?
She means two,
250.
Right, just right there.
connecting here, 250.
Yeah.
Well, that too.
Both would go unfinished. We've had some conversations with Rocky Mountain Power, and I feel like they might be changing their perspective to some extent. But at least a couple of years ago, they were entertaining offers to purchase properties like this. I know a number of different developers have approached them to do that. I think there is some inevitability that they would sell at least the portions of the property that they don't have maybe otherwise encumbered directly with their lines and that sort of a thing. And they have worked with us to be able to, for example, get an easement for a road and the like. I don't know how that plays out, but I think that's a reasonable thing to maybe plan for, which is why we've been pretty insistent that this developer plan for that street connection through their project.
So I guess I have one more question. Did you say the property owner that you're working with owns the lot or the property to the north of this piece?
Yes, the property owner owns the 10 acres. The 10
Okay.
acres is approximately the same size as the Rocky Mountain Power
Okay,
piece.
so when he develops that road will be finished and safer.
Spanish Fork Parkway?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Keep in mind, Councilwoman Beck, it's not finished on the other side.
True. Okay, yeah,
And
that's,
I should just add too, it's not that Rocky Mountain Power isn't workable. They seem to us that they do want to sell the property at some point. It's just a matter of timing, and in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
we haven't been able to line up
But
our objectives and timing.
Right now, with this development, we're getting improvements here, and we're getting improvements here,
Correct.
right? This road's gonna be much better here and here.
that'll help.
I wanted to add something to what Dan just mentioned there. As we visited with Rocky Mountain Power, they've indicated their willingness to sell, especially these kind of triangles that are north and south of the power line. They would, in all likelihood, not sell the ground underneath the right-of-way that they want to maintain. They want to keep ownership in as much as they can. It's just not their priority. And so they will sell it when it works in their timing and whatever they're doing. And it just, we've been able to work with them on a few other properties, but this is just one they're like, we've done the other ones. We've got other fish to fry at this moment. We're going to work on those other issues. And so it's just a matter of timing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. Any other questions for the applicants or for staff on this item B? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Hollow Acres zone change and preliminary plat approval with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Marshall. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
That passes. Okay, it takes us to item C, ordinance for Title 15 amendment to make child care centers a permitted use in the industrial 1 zone.
Yeah, the long version of this would be pretty short. Right now, we don't allow child care centers in our light industrial zone. We call that our I-1 or industrial 1 zone, which comprises most of the property around the airport, for example. Much of the properties along Main Street, north of the Main Street interchange. And the applicants on this proposal approached the city maybe a month and a half or so ago with a particular site in mind. And it just happened to be that we had a couple of other people that also had reached out in recent months about being able to do daycare centers in that part of the community. So we as staff had some conversations about it. We'd given it a certain amount of thought. And in short, we've concluded, that is the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission as well, that for different reasons, it's an appropriate change to make child care centers a permitted use in the industrial 1 zone, among other reasons, as we continue to add employment in that part of the community. This really is a needed part of the infrastructure to support employees and to help businesses grow and to operate and that type of a thing. Between the provisions that we have when we review a site plan for a particular property that somebody might want to use for a child care center, we think that we can address any safety concerns and that type of a thing that we might have at that point in time. And additionally, this is a use that is regulated by the state of Utah. So between those two things, we don't necessarily feel like there's a downside to allowing them in that part of the community. And again, that's a big part of the recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave before we go into public hearing for this item? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to go to public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon to go into public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing. Yes. State, your turn. State your name.
Yes, my name's Lane McGleston. I'm here with my wife, Christina. We were the ones who brought this to the council, so thank you for looking at this. We currently reside in Springville. Please don't hold it against us.
Oh, geez. Chief?
But we've had enough issues with our own town to be able to get approvals, to be able to open a center, so we had to look beyond our circle of influence. So that's why we're coming here. Part of the issues that we've noticed is when it comes to opening a daycare center, there's a lot of state regulations on how many parking lots, the size per kid, and the availability for outdoor space and indoor space. And the availability and where it's currently allowed, there's just not very many properties. Currently in Spanish Fork, there's only 1 daycare, and for the amount of growth that is happening between Springville, Spanish Fork, and Mapleton, we're hoping to open a daycare to expand. Our prior history is we've had a home daycare in Springville for the past 8 years, and simply looking to expand from the home into the next level into the center. So we're greatly appreciative, and we hope that we'll be able to do great work and business here in Spanish Fork. But any, I guess, questions on?
Any questions for Lane? Yeah, we might have. We might call you back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this item? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Marshall to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing on this item. Any more questions for staff or for the applicant?
Just a quick question for Dave. So some of our permitted uses in Industrial 1, to me, might be a safety danger to a child center. And I know this is state approved, so I'm assuming they would look at that.
I'm really not that familiar with what the state specifically looks at outside of the walls of the particular structure that the service is being provided in. Although I do know there are some things that are looked at outside. We did have some hesitation initially, going back to an experience that we had when the Utah County Health Department put a child care center in the Expressway Business Park on Expressway Lane there on the north side of that road here a number of years ago. And in that particular case, we didn't have an opportunity, for example, to review a site plan, to look at where a playground would be located outside, to be able to consider how maybe to protect the center from some adjacent uses, which in that case, there's like a welding supply shop in the area where they had a forklift zipping around, where kids were outside playing and some things like that. So there were some things about that that were very concerning for us. And that led to some hesitation on our part when we first started to look at this. Made us think that maybe it'd be better to make this a conditional use than a permitted use. We had a bunch of different conversations along those lines. And eventually, I think we kind of talked ourselves into being comfortable with the different opportunities that we have to make sure that facilities get designed in a safe way. So there's certainly adequate separation from any patrons of a facility like this and adjacent uses.
But as a
Thanks, Dave.
permitted use, oh, sorry, Chad.
No, I just said thanks.
As a permitted use, though, there's, if the applicant follows the rules, they're there, no matter what use is on either side of them. Correct?
That is correct, which incidentally, it's that way with a conditional use
Okay.
for the most part as well. The difference being that we can go above and beyond what is expressly prescribed in our regulations to require reasonable improvements to mitigate any concerns that we might have. The Planning Commission is the land use authority on conditional uses, so they approve those. I wouldn't have a concern if the council felt more comfortable with this being a conditional use than permitted. We felt like it wasn't necessary, but that.
You look at the uses that are conditional, it fits fairly well there. Rehabilitation centers, treatment centers, shelter care facilities. Seems more compatible than lumber and building yards, lube centers.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
they all will commingle because they're all permitted at some point.
And some other uses just add a little bit more flavor to our conversation. We allow dance studios.
Yeah.
And things like that, so we have a pretty broad mix ultimately of
it's
things.
a wide.
It's, yeah, and in some ways, it's kind of a catch-all zone.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I have a problem with it there. Just want to make sure it's done correctly, and if we have enough checks and balances in place to make that happen under a non-conditional, I'm good.
And the business owner obviously would need to be aware that if they're building or moving into that industrial use, they don't have any control as to what other industrial uses end up around them, right? You could have a lube center right next door, you could have
Yeah.
any of these things.
I guess too, just, you know, from a,
There has to be some regulation though, right? Like it can't be within proximity to maybe a bar? Is that true? By the state? Would that be regulated?
Not necessarily,
Oh,
no.
interesting.
The state has the regulations on the property itself on what the state requires, like on fencing, safety, size, and adult to child ratio. But it doesn't have a regulation like it can't be necessarily next. All of the employees have to go through FBI check to make sure they're all verified. And even on a proposed site, the state won't issue a license to the business owner until the city's had a chance to actually go through the permitted uses to look at it anyways through that site plan. And since there isn't any current daycares located in, besides just the one, any daycare in any zoning location will have to go through a site plan with the city to get any type of approval at this point. Yeah, but from my understanding, it isn't. I mean, in coincidence, the location we're looking at is the mountain, the Maple Mountain Bar and Grill, right by the airport.
Oh, gotcha.
So we had looked at some other properties that didn't check the boxes, didn't have a restaurant kitchen, it had stairs, other issues, but this location is all on one level. It already has large fencing. It already has a parking lot. So that's the location we're currently looking at. You know, so since you mentioned it, that's what we want to transform.
My mind was thinking, you're right, we can't put a
And they'll keep the-
church within proximity of a
Of a bar,
of
correct.
someone that sells alcohol. And so I was thinking in my mind, like, yeah, that very thing.
They'll
Yeah.
keep the whiskey. The whiskey comes with it.
Well, I mean,
That,
there's
that's
certainly a
being
lot of
sold with the
dancing.
business owner, he has to take that.
Oh, he's taking
We're
that.
just taking, yeah,
Okay.
so.
He's taking that.
So.
So Dave, a
Thinking of my own kids.
daycare center like this still has the option if they want to purchase property in a commercial or a residential or not residential. Where can they currently have a business like this? It doesn't change any of that. They could still find that location. This just opens the door to additional locations if they can't find one.
Other zones like our commercial 2 zone, I think a residential office zone, commercial office zone, allow childcare centers as well. We do not allow the use the way that we're talking about it now.
In a residential.
Residential zones.
So most of the time, we use conditional use permits to mitigate the impact to the surrounding community from the business that's going in, right? Not the other, and I'm thinking about it the other way around here.
Yeah.
Which I think is not fair to the applicant.
know that it's not fair to the applicant. In fairness to them, I think that the current location, it probably isn't a problem, but in the industrial zone, we allow for sexually oriented businesses. And so if this was right next to a sexually oriented business, I don't think you'd want that use there.
True.
And so I think it's okay to say looking both ways.
Yeah, but I don't know that making it a conditional use allows you to say no.
Right. I think we can write the language in such a way, or if we have to adjust it, I'll pull up something in a minute that goes the way you were talking, to protect it from a future sexually oriented business coming in. But I think it's okay to be thinking that way.
Yeah. I also think that the business owner that's going to make the investment in this type of thing would not choose to locate in that area, in that neck of the woods.
Perhaps next to a rehab center.
Right, so it's almost gonna regulate itself a little bit, because it doesn't make business sense to say, hey, come to my daycare center, we're right next to the bar.
Or does
Or
it?
in the bar.
We're in the bar.
No way.
Or in the bar.
But they can't say, but
That's
they,
actually a pretty good business
I
model.
think it really would work.
I'm just saying.
but what we're saying is if they're there
Before work.
first now as an industrial use, the daycare
not
is there,
protected.
they don't have control as to what other industrial use builds right next door. And so that's the risk that they would then take going down that path.
Here's my, the thoughts I had, the reality side of this and the hypothetical side of this. We have a daycare center where I think it's been 3 or 4 years ago now, but on Main Street, where narrowly a person having an issue narrowly missed the playground and went in the church, right off Main Street. And that's a permitted use, and that's there and everything, and there's a level of, there's a level of whatever that is there. Where I see this working well for, and maybe it's our job, is to look at the future of what's currently happening in our city, is the applicants that have industrial places that are gonna employ hundreds of people, sometimes approaching thousands of people. And those jobs, these are going to be your clients. These are your clients that need to figure out a daycare situation, which is huge in today's economy, in today's world, and everything else. And I'm just thinking, as that young couple that gets a job maybe at the same warehouse together or whatever, wouldn't it be nice to have your facility relatively close to where we go to work every day?
Correct. I mean, the other thing from this particular location, it's just a few minutes from the Spanish Fork main exit, 7 minutes from 4th on in Springville, and then with the overpass, the new Mapleton overpass, which is what, from my understanding, received funding, should be complete. So on ours, we think the location is fantastic, meaning it's within 10 minutes from any of those exits, for the convenience of parents and those who are dropping off kids. So that's why this particular location is nice.
We just don't want to call it the Mapleton Overpass Lane.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
I think that's strike
I
two.
did-
Well, Springville,
Strike
strike
two.
one, Mapleton
strike two.
Overpass, strike two. We're just letting you,
Okay,
Okay.
let's
I'm
get it.
educating you.
I'm
Maybe
originally,
you're happy to, your wife's happy to come up. I'm
if I,
just
I was originally from Tacoma, Washington, but
Oh, fair
hence,
enough.
I was told that Springville was heaven on earth, so hence we're here.
Strike three.
It's a Washington guy there.
Hey, I'm from the other side of the mountains.
Oh.
But that wasn't for the Tacoma. It was for the heaven on earth. Can I bring up, if you'll pull up, this is in municipal code on SOBs. This is one of my favorite subjects. I'm just gonna leave it there. Yeah.
Add another
I
line.
caught it.
Got it, Seth.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm having a hard time. If you Google my name and this term, then you get a great newspaper article from I think 2006. So yeah, there you go, Shane. I think if we're gonna consider allowing daycares in the industrial zone, this is probably an area then we can also, and I think we can add here tonight, some language that, let's see, was it line C? Where it says that they may not be located within certain distances of school, library, park, residence, or daycare
Yeah.
facility.
Love it.
I think that can add some additional protection from a business coming in after one of these is established.
And that's why Spanish Fork rocks,
Yeah.
It's
because our
heaven
city manager comes
on
up with things
earth.
like this.
Yeah.
Fly.
Yeah.
So I think, and we can, add, because this is a public hearing on Title 15, I think we can say add it here too, right? This is 15. This particular one is 15. There is, business license is 5. Anyways, if you're inclined to approve this for this gentleman that has struck out, then I would consider.
It's a baseball town. We don't give 4 strikes here.
Then in your motion, consider, and in your deliberations, consider adding some language here to provide that additional protection.
Great.
like it.
Thank you, Seth. Yeah.
like it as
Anything
well.
else? Any questions about that? Anything? Okay. Maybe with that addition there, as stated, maybe we're ready to make a motion.
I'll give it a crack.
Okay.
I move to approve the ordinance for Title 15 amendments to make child care centers a permanent use in the Industrial 1 zone with the findings and conditions in the staff report, and that Title 15 324.8, line C, the words daycare center added to that line.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilman. Any discussions on? Okay, if not, we will. Yes, please. Vaughn, come on up.
Just procedurally to make this happen, we have a zoning ordinance, zone change ordinance here tonight, but we'll need like a zone text amendment ordinance to come back at a future meeting.
Okay.
To get that effective, don't you think, Dave? Or you want to change ordinance section? We could do that. Well, never mind. Forget what I said. We could just do another section in the zone change ordinance with the text amendment. Sorry.
Keep us out of jail. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the table and seconded, and this will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Item C passes. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us tease you.
Safe travels back to
Yeah, we just
Springville.
approved 130 homes, just saying.
Yeah.
And we want to help service those
Chief, one of those new officers, follow him home. Yeah,
We're in the 15 passenger van.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item D, ordinance for Garth Swenson zone change. This proposal would change the zoning of a property located at 550 West, 800 North, from rural residential to industrial 1.
Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. 8 acres, give or take. The area is designated industrial in the general plan. The property just to the north of this is currently being developed. In fact, the construction there is being finished up. And I just would add that when properties in this area were annexed approximately 10 years ago, it was done expressly because we had significant utility capacity, given the power substation that's not too far, sewer lines that are available in the area, water, different things that we don't have in much of the rest of our part of the community that is zoned industrial. So it's been targeted for industrial development, and particularly because of that, supporting a zone change to industrial for me is really easy. It's that simple.
Thank you, Dave.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. We're going to go into public hearing for this item. Anybody would like to make a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon to go into public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing. Anybody want to speak to this? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing. Any questions on this item?
I've got one. I'm just curious, property owners here, how do you access your property currently?
Come up to the mic.
I'm Garth Swenson. So right now we come in from the south. You see a little three-corner piece there just south of the green. That's where our yards are, and that piece we still own, or
Okay.
will still own.
Okay, so you will have access if something were to develop here, because looking at it on the map, it just looked like it was island. So I was just curious how you access it.
Last of the family farm. Garth?
Not quite.
Not
We
quite.
still have a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the ordinance for Garth Swenson zone change with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Takes us to item E, ordinance for Eldorado zone change. This proposal would change the zoning of a property located at 455 West, 1000 North, from RR to Industrial 1. Pretty close to here, Dave?
Pretty close, like
Okay.
right next to the last one we looked at, just to the north. Same situation. And because of that, both staff and the planning commission recommend that this zone change be approved.
Perfect.
I move we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion to go into public hearing by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing. Anybody want to speak to this item? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing. Any discussion or questions about this item?
You know how bad I do not like piecemealing this, right? Can we just do this at one time?
Jeez.
Because you don't like piecemealing it, you'd prefer that we do what?
Why are we approving these things with boundary lines that are touching independently
Instead of doing them together
Yeah.
as one.
as one zone change? Why do we zone individual properties one off, one off, one off?
We're reacting.
It's an application.
That's
Okay.
it. Yeah. Applicants made proposals and we're reacting to those, and it's just kind of happenstance. As I understand it, maybe there are conversations that we're not aware of that link these. I think it's pretty coincidental. So,
It's an easy decision, don't get me wrong. It's
yeah,
just-
no, and
It's two separate land use applications, right?
that's why, exactly why, yeah.
Timetables,
Yeah.
Okay.
His UDOT mind when it's touching I-15.
It's just-
He just wants to do it all the way from Spanish down to Santaquin, and he wants it done.
I'm just happy that he noticed they were actually close together.
I know, that's a-
He knows where
It is a first, I think. It took me a minute, but can
knows
you
where
make
we're
sure
at.
that's in the record?
Okay, any other questions on this item? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance for the Eldorado zone change with the finding in the staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Euler to approve this ordinance zone change. Roll call vote, Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
That passes. Okay, that takes us to 11, a new business, and item A in new business, the ordinance for the Madera zone change preliminary plat approval. Proposal involves approving a zone change from rural residential to commercial 2 and residential 4, and approving a preliminary plat for master plan development with some 600 homes. Subject property contains some 42 acres located at 2000 West, 1900 South. Dave Anderson, this is one we've seen before and tabled, and it's back in front of us.
Exactly, and in fact, you held a public hearing on this a month ago. So you've satisfied that requirement. If you want to take additional comment, I think that's up to you. But for that reason, this is listed as a new business item and not as a public hearing. As I understand it, this was continued a month ago, particularly because there were some concerns about existing agricultural operations in the area, immediately adjacent to this property and so forth. Continuing it gave us a couple of opportunities to do some things. I think the most important thing that we did, and genuinely it was helpful, we really appreciate the people that shared their thoughts with us, as several of us on staff met with some of the neighbors and talked through a couple of different things, but mainly focused on the opportunity that exists for the city to help some people put their lands in ag protection areas if they choose to do that. And in light of that, the city attorney and I have talked about the best approach to take in terms of preparing some language to bring back to you, so that we would spell out what the process would be if a property owner in Spanish Fork wanted to make use of a particular opportunity that is prescribed in Utah law to provide for some protections to help them avoid some of the things that might impact their farming operation otherwise. We anticipate having that in front of you here. I really want to believe within the next month, maybe let's say next month or two. I don't think it's necessarily complicated, and I think what we will present, in fact, will largely just mimic the state law. And there are really just a couple of opportunities where we'd like to get the Planning Commission and your input as to maybe some particular thresholds that might be a part of that language. But the spirit of that effort and the spirit of the conversation really had everything to do with, as properties develop in any part of the community, if there are things that we can do to help people that don't want to develop, that aren't ready to sell a farm or to change land use, to be able to continue to do those things without dealing with any one of a number of different impacts that might exist as you start to have homes next to you. We want to be as responsive and helpful as we can to make sure that people can do just that, can continue to farm for as long as they choose to. Ag protection's part of that. The other part of the conversation has to do with things that we might be able to require of developers when properties develop, maybe things to help deal with drainage or things to protect livestock, things to separate livestock and human beings. Any one of a number of different things. Talked about trying to come up with some way to keep trash out of ditches as well. Things that we can do as city staff when we're working with the developer on that explicit development plan that prescribes or at least identifies all of the improvements that will be made when a property develops, again, to be sensitive to what happens around a development. Certainly in this case here, surrounded on 3 sides in Spanish Fork with existing farming operations. To one extent or another, based on what I'm learning, I think farming in the area likely will continue well into the future. And without going into a lot of detail, we've had a lot of conversations, right, about what that means for Spanish Fork and, trying to maintain a certain identity and heritage and just lifestyle in the community. So really easy to support. And continuing this helped us get to a point where I think we have a better understanding as to what we can do and what that will look like going forward. Also, I think without the council expressly asking for this, the applicant has provided some language that I think has been shared with you in terms of notice, is what I would say, that can be given to people that might purchase a property in the Madera development, or people that might sign a lease agreement to otherwise live in the Madera development. And I think that is very helpful also. So that is something that we would anticipate having in place as we move forward. So back again tonight from a month ago, we've had some healthy conversations, yet the development proposal itself hasn't changed, which really has to do with this. A total of 660 homes, a combination of apartments and what would be subdivided and sold as condominiums, 3- and 4-story buildings, a number of different amenities. As designed, it complies with our requirements for the residential 4 zone. And again, staff, we haven't re-deliberated since the continuance. So our recommendation to approve it, and the planning commissions, those are still in place. Maybe just to kind of finish my thoughts here, you might have noticed that we do have a lengthy set of conditions that accompany this proposal. We're recommending that you tie to any approval. A matter of the scale of the development and us wanting to take some steps incrementally. So for example, not requiring the developer in this case to do a full-fledged landscaping plan, down to detailing how the irrigation system would be designed and constructed and that sort of a thing. Something that might cost $100,000 until the project is approved. And yet having that be a condition of approval, as they move forward, and having these conditions and some other things memorialized in a development agreement. Very important things for us as staff, other things that involve modifying the architecture of their buildings to accommodate certain features that they don't have right now, without largely changing the character of what's been presented, different details of that nature. And I might suggest as a 9th condition as well, requirement that that notice language that I mentioned be included as part of the closing documents, or maybe lease agreements. And I don't think it should be or closing documents and lease agreements, as appropriate going forward. So I'll just mention that maybe instead of reading those verbatim, but they're all there for a reason. Some of them at this point, a month after your meeting last month, are probably less important today, but still important.
Thank you, Dave. I'm a fan, even though it's 1 through 8, and it's some paragraphs and now maybe a 9th added to it. This is those being read, maybe so the public can hear those conditions. I probably wouldn't go find these conditions if they weren't read in that motion. So my admonition is to maybe read those into a motion. Any discussion up here further about this?
What was the notice? What is the language of the notice, and where will the notice be?
You want me to read that to you? No, you can read it.
If you have it, Andy, do you mind?
Yeah. Disclosure of agricultural operations near project. You didn't know I'd have that, did you, Shane?
No, I'm impressed.
Each owner, by accepting a deed to a lot, acknowledges that A, the project is located in the vicinity of agricultural properties. B, lots within the project may be subject to adverse noise, odors, fumes, smells, and physically airborne particulates caused by the operation and maintenance of other properties. And C, pesticides, insecticides, and fertilizers may drift over and disperse upon portions of the project from time to time as a result of crop dusting activities on neighboring agricultural properties. Use of agricultural properties is a legal use of such other properties and should be expected to continue indefinitely. Neither declarant nor the city shall be responsible for any adverse effects resulting from use of agricultural properties. I can't remember the date that was sent to us, but that's the email that I brought up.
That sounds good. Thank you for taking the time.
It was actually the applicant that prepared that.
Well, I mean, when we tabled it, thank you for taking time to meet with the landowners in the area, and I think it makes us, or at least myself, a lot more comfortable. Hopefully they're happy with that, happier.
Can we ask?
No.
It's not a public hearing, he
I
was
was-
asking you?
No,
I don't know who is asking.
I'm asking Jackie.
It's not a public hearing, but yeah, if anybody's here to speak to this, you're more than welcome. Take 3 minutes and, have your,
My thoughts essentially.
you want her name? Do you need her name?
Just-
Sorry.
Jackie
Jackie
Larson.
Larson, sorry.
Thank you, Jackie.
It will protect us from lawsuits if it does go that direction. It won't stop the complaints. I think it's going to cause a nuisance on both, is essentially those who are living there in this kind of development right next to a farm are going to complain, and it's going to be a nuisance for the farmers having to deal with the constant complaints coming because we're just trying to do what we do. I don't know if, when I was reading the language in the city ordinances, some of the setback requirements for like the buffering zone, something to do with the height of the buildings and that, I don't know that agriculture was considered in that. I think overall, essentially, the same opinions that we had before is like, it's a great development, great plan, just not the right area. So,
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, perfect. Anybody, questions from up
I
here?
just wanted to make one comment. So at the end of our meeting a month ago, they mentioned that, and this language is great, but some of that construction garbage and stuff like that, they said they would put a fence around not only the the phase, but also the project to try to keep some of that garbage. And I mean, that comes from them, the other comes from the farmer's dust, I know, but keep some of that garbage from spreading outside of that construction area zone. That's still a yes. I'm hoping that they will continue to keep that in their mind so that we don't get the phone calls.
You know, some of that is inevitable, right? Particularly during construction. And I think we have a great opportunity as the city and maybe an obligation to make sure that, particularly in a situation like this, and I'll acknowledge this has been a really, really emotional issue for some people that live in areas like this and that have properties developed next to them, and all of a sudden they have all kinds of different debris in their yard, in their corrals, in their pens, in their alfalfa fields, and all over the place that absolutely, I believe, do impact them in significant ways. That has added to some pretty hard feelings that people have about development and the city, with them feeling like we don't do enough to hold developers, but really it's the contractors that are building things there that ultimately are responsible for not taking care of their trash and keeping it from going on to neighboring properties. What I'm saying simply is that I think by way of how we inspect developments and the oversight that we provide during construction particularly, we need to get better in that area and make the contractors be more accountable, be more responsible, to make sure that we don't have the same type of problems into the future, at least not to the degree that we've had sometimes in the past. So that's my thought, and I think just maybe to add to that, Our development review process is incremental. This is a huge step. Approving a zone change, a plat. With that, you can rest assured that ultimately what gets built is going to look like this. But the details of more explicit parts of the design, those are yet to come, as are things like pre-construction meetings and other opportunities that we have as staff to interface with the developer and their contractors and to set forth some ground rules for what happens during the course of a development and that type of a thing. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that that issue isn't an issue when properties develop in these areas.
You know, it's funny, you know, your last statement, as I'm walking in today, one of our inspectors is going out to and do a final walkthrough on a new community that's neighboring agricultural. Why would it be so hard for them to have one more punch list item that says, you know, look at all the garbage up against the fence surrounding, and I don't want to put more on our inspectors. They're very busy right now and working very hard, but I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Because we do hold them to making sure that the streets are to the standards, the concrete, the curb, everything else. Am I crazy?
Does it fall under SWIT? Is there a
Some things probably would. Yeah, some of the things that people have complained about probably would. Frankly, I think most often it probably is our building inspectors, though. You know, they're the ones that are visiting a site like this, you know, probably a site like this on a daily basis or close to it. And, you know, taking a moment to drive around and to look for garbage and that type of a thing. And simply putting the contractor on notice that, hey, yeah, this is maybe another punch list item, or maybe you're not going to get another inspection until things are cleaned up. It does get to be a little bit challenging, maybe, when it comes to having somebody go into somebody else's property to clean things up. You know, so that can be a hurdle that might take some tact to work through and some cooperation with neighboring property owners. But in my mind, I think there is a role for the city to play in helping to make sure that isn't an issue like we've had in the past.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, rest assured, we've all been called, I think we've all been called by probably neighbors there where construction's going on, and now there's dirt and mud on the road where there shouldn't be dirt and mud on the road. And credit to our inspection department that has went out and red tagged projects, and they don't start back up until that's taken care of, and then all of a sudden it's taken care of pretty quick because time is money. So rest assured, this is a project that I think will be watched just as much as any, for sure. And
Say one more thing. I sent you guys all an email. It was like around 4 p.m. tonight. I don't know if you did see it.
Yeah, in fact,
One thing that might be crucial to mention is Title 10, Chapter 9A of the Utah State Code outlines that in drafting the land use element, the Planning Commission shall identify and consider each agriculture protection area within the municipality and avoid proposing a use of land within an agriculture protection area that is inconsistent with or detrimental to the use of land for agriculture. So, sorry, also if you haven't read it yet, it's a novel, and if you have read it, thank you for reading it to the end.
well,
Thank
I
you,
guess my
Jackie.
question on that email for Dave is, reading the email, it sounds like there has been an application submitted for an agricultural protection area to the city. What's the city's role with that? What is our role as city council, or does it go through the state? Also, we've already designated general use, general plan for this area. Is there grandfathering? What can you tell us about that?
Vaughn, please correct me if I get anything wrong, but I think it's pretty simple. I think if somebody requests approval for an ag protection area, it ultimately is up to the city council to decide whether or not.
That's generally right. There's a commission or committee at the county level, or the conservancy district level that has to review it. It's an advisory committee, and then it goes to the planning commission, and they give their recommendation, but ultimately it's the city council's decision whether or not and to what extent to approve an ag protection area. I don't know if there's been an application submitted or not, has there?
I'd say of a sort, yeah. I mean, we don't have a formal formal process created yet, but Jackie has done her best, I think.
But
to initiate
that's what you
that.
mentioned earlier, is that we need to create that formal process so she can submit that.
Okay.
Now we're the first within Spanish Fork boundaries.
We have none now, and we have.
We have one that we inherited from the county in the north. Remember, we pulled out some property out of the ag protection area that was created in the county. But then it was with annexations, part of it's in our city now, but it's up in the industrial area. But,
Thank you, Ron.
yep.
Uniquely enough, Mr. Larson that we worked with chairs the Ag Protection Committee for the county, so he's forgot more than we'll know about it, and it was good to have him in the room and discuss it with him, so. Okay, any other questions? Again, I would stress in this that I know it would take a minute to read all eight, and add the 9th to it, but I think that's pertinent in this motion.
Stacy's the best. She's in the book club.
She a good reader?
Oh,
She's
wow.
already set records
I don't know
for
if you know that.
for reading.
Oh, sorry, Chad is in one.
Oh, Chad's in one too, okay.
All right, I'll go for it. I move to approve the ordinance for the Madera zone change and preliminary plat approval with the findings and conditions in the staff report. There's 8. Number 1, that the zone change conforms to the city's general plan. Number 2, that the proposed preliminary plat is consistent with R4 zone. And then the conditions, number 1, the preliminary plat approval is contingent upon the approval of the zone change. 2, that the applicant meets all zoning requirements, construction standards, and addresses any red lines, including 2, but not limited to, those that will be forthcoming based on recent submittals. 3rd, that the applicant enters into a development agreement with the city and that no applications for final plat approval be accepted until the agreement has been executed. 4th, that the development agreement includes covenant and operational requirements that garages must only be used for vehicular storage, and provisions that no less than 50% of the condominium homes may be owner-occupied. 5th, that the design of freestanding garages be modified to match the style of the rest of the development. 6th, that the design of the apartment buildings be modified to add more points of common access to the buildings. 7th, that the applicant add appropriate improvements to the development plans in order to protect existing agriculture land uses on adjacent properties. And 8th, that the applicant provide more detailed information on amenities and landscape plan, detailed phasing plan, updated building elevations, updated descriptions of building materials, updated engineering plans, and any other documents needed for inclusion as exhibits in the development agreement.
And 9.
Add 9.
And 9, the disclosure of agriculture operations near project. Each owner, by accepting a deed to a lot, acknowledges that A, the project is located in the vicinity of agriculture properties. B, lots within the project may be subject to adverse noise, odors, fumes, smells, and physically airborne particulates caused by the operation and maintenance of other properties. C, pesticides, insecticides, and fertilizers may drift over and disperse upon portions of the project from time to time as a result of crop dusting activities on neighboring agricultural properties. Use of agriculture properties is a legal use of other properties and should be expected to continue indefinitely. Neither declarant nor the city shall be responsible for any adverse effects resulting from use of agriculture properties. My apologies if I did not articulate something properly. Vaughn,
I was wondering if you could make that also similar language be included in the lease agreements, not just for the purchasing lots.
and similar language be included in the lease agreements.
Okay. There's a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck and seconded by Councilman Gordon on this ordinance. Any discussion of this motion? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Okay. That passes. Item B takes us to project signage plan for TLM 900 East Expressway Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. This request is similar to requests that you've seen
Copies?
some recently.
Good.
Do you need this back, Jackie?
Are these copies for us?
Oh, you emailed it to us, right? Is it similar to what you emailed us?
This wasn't in the email, but I can send it to you.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jackie.
Thanks.
Sorry, Dave.
Problem. We've been through this process a couple of different times, a few different times for Woodbury. And that was really the origin of the concept here, which is to provide, in certain situations, for more signage than what our ordinance otherwise would allow. So in this case, a couple of different property owners that own property in the same development have gotten together to put together plans for signage that they feel are important for the viability of their properties, leasing, the viability of tenants that they would have in their properties, and that type of a thing. In short, one of the signs would be 51 feet tall, which is intended to be identical to what has been approved for the Canyon Creek development. Another sign would be 35 feet tall, also intended to be similar to a particular type of sign that's been approved in the Canyon Creek development. The subject property in this case is the Expressway Square Center. Along US Highway 6, there is Arby's, Chick-fil-A, and the Lube Shop that are part of that project. And the two signs would be located here, the larger of the two, the 51 or so foot tall sign right there. That's a depiction of what the sign would look like. Again, intending to mimic by way of kind of form and materials. Mimic but not match exactly what's been approved with Canyon Creek. This sign would be located in very close proximity to Arby's, kind of on what I would say is the southwest corner of their site, out near US Highway 6, right there.
Northwest.
That goes away.
Yeah, let's say northwest.
It's gonna go
Yeah,
away.
exactly, yes, and the old sign that I think had signed copy for Kmart goes away. The second sign, the 35-foot tall sign, would be located on, let's just say, the south corner of where Chipotle will be when it's constructed.
When you introduced this, you said the lube shop is in that, but it's not highlighted in yellow.
I think it's part of the expressway. I'm not sure why that's not colored that way. The applicant prepared this image here. That's probably why it's a different owner, even though they're part of the center.
Who named it? Expressway Square.
Somebody did that 32 or 33
Oh, really?
years
I never knew that.
When you were working there.
Yeah, so there used to be a, I don't know if there still is, but there used to be a monument sign that I think always was missing a letter or two.
The overall sign's still there, I saw it today.
Sign doesn't work apparently very well. Yeah, it's not. You have to slow down and
Somebody that used
turn
to
your
work
head.
at Kmart.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, City Council has no obligation to approve requests like this. I recommend that you do. I understand that this is fairly important to the property owners and their efforts to make these properties as vibrant and functional as they can be.
Thank you, Dave, for that explanation and the visual. Any questions about this? This is consistent with what Canyon Creek signs look like in the area. And we hope it's advertising for a new tenant soon. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve project signing plan for TLM at 900 East Expressway Lane.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Euler. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Argyle?
Aye.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
And Councilman Argyle was your aye. Did that mean yes?
Yes.
Okay. That passes. Off to item number C, Strawberry Water Users Association Lost Generation Agreement. I'll bet Councilman Gordon didn't even know that there was electrical generation right there.
So believe it or not, the microbial aspects of the liquor inside of a wastewater treatment digester is not the most complicated thing that I deal with. It's water rights. Water rights, there's nothing more complicated than water rights. And so what we have is a situation where we take water from a lot of different springs up the canyon and then straight out of the river and from pipelines that come down from Strawberry Reservoir. And all of those different water rights affect the power generators off of Powerhouse Road in different ways. Some of them actually add water to those generators because we take them down below the generators. Some take away from the top generator, but put the water in the bottom generator, take it out of the bottom generator, but put water in the top generator. And then some just take the water out of what was being generated completely. So that affects Strawberry water users who runs these power generators in a lot of different ways. And our agreements with them always say something to the fact that we will compensate them for the lost generation. But they kind of say that we'll do that in different ways. And so what we did is a study with them where we analyzed every single water right and how it affected them exactly and how much lost generation each one had. And we put that into a table and made it very easy to plug in the numbers of the water rights that we used and calculate how much power loss they actually had. And then what we want to do is just get rid of all the past agreements on that and say, this is how we are going to reimburse you for lost generation from now on.
Any idea about how much it is each year?
About $20,000.
It's called Powerhouse Road for a reason. There's power generated at a power plant. I think it's pretty cool, but that's because when I was 15 and didn't rake the screens enough, there wouldn't be enough water that goes down, and then you'd get a phone call that you're about to shut off the generators because there's not enough water to generate power, which is bad.
You can say it because Mike didn't do his job.
Maybe.
Yeah, do some raking, Mike.
Maybe. Yeah, I could have, I blame both of them. Yep. Thank you, Chris. Any questions about this? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Strawberry Water Users Association Lost Generation Agreement.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. I can't remember where I started last. Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon.
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
That passes. Item D, West Interchanges Sewer Trunk Line Change Order number 6. We're on number 6.
Yeah, this has been a really fun project. Basically installing big heavy pipe and chocolate pudding is what I call it. But luckily for us, we've had a really great contractor. We've really had a good experience with them making sure that they did a quality installation, even though the conditions were quite difficult. There should be a slide presentation. This project's gone on for quite some time, and it's getting closer to the end, and you might feel like this change order is coming a little bit later in the game, but in actuality, we've been working on this for months, and in order to justify this change order, it took quite a bit of work and a lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings, and we use an engineering firm, Sunrise Engineering, to design this project and work with the contractor to do what is called a CMGC type contract, where basically the contractor and the engineer work on the design together, and they come up with a plan, and they give a guaranteed maximum price, and then they go and execute that plan. As we have discussed some of the complexities of this, we have wanted to make sure that some of the asks that they were giving were legitimate and fair, and we weren't taking advantage of them, but they weren't taking advantage of us. And it takes quite a bit of work by the engineers and by Whitaker Construction and our inspectors to go through those numbers, make sure that they're all in good order and that it makes sense. One of the things, though, to their credit, is they have continued working with the understanding that this may or may not be approved. Their commitment is to the project to finish it, whether there's a loss or not. And as we've watched it being constructed, the pipe is very well placed in a tough situation. And so we've appreciated that of them. They always start every meeting with, if you said no to everything we ask here, we're still going to finish this project even if it's at a sizable loss. And so we've appreciated them on that. And so what I didn't think you wanted is, well, Shane wanted this, but we met with him and gave it to him.
Oh.
But
Thank you,
the
Shane.
Pages of data behind it.
Me and Keith solved it at the gas station.
We've shortened this.
Problem is.
Shortened this conversation by a bit.
Yeah, we could have gone on a long time. But we do have a slide presentation that I'd like to go over with you quickly. If you could go to the next slide. One of the things that we talked early on is to justify asking for more cost, we needed to see what you and the engineer and city staff planned on at the beginning when this project was designed, and how you calculated your fill requirements and your materials and time requirements. And then you need to show us what actually happened and how that affected your fill requirements and time requirements. And then we needed to see, we have approved some change orders already, as you said. We needed to see how that was applied to it and then what was left. And so that's kind of part of the process that we went through. But in basic terms, the original plan was this type of a trench in the roads for this pipe. And what ended up happening, especially as we got deep with the pipe, is, can you go to the next slide? What would happen is you'd see this slough area, and the road would just erode quite a bit away from the trench boxes that we had, and that material didn't just evaporate into thin air. It was really interesting. It would come underneath these trench boxes and push up, it'd bubble up in the bottom. So if you could go back a slide. And so what we ended up having is this much more trench. So I call it the chocolate pudding. So the chocolate pudding right here somehow flows down, and then it pushes up in here where we have to excavate it. And so your excavation becomes quite a bit more. As you can imagine, this is a road, and so you're building a lot more road back. and then the time it took. And I don't know the numbers exactly, but I have the contractor here. About how many feet per day were you planning originally to install?
I think one of your slides shows it. We're upwards of 100, depending on the pipe size, depending on the pipe diameter, the depth. We looked at different scenarios. We had it all broken out.
75.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the initial plan was 75 feet per day on the 30-inch, and then 99 feet per day on the 36. The reason why it was actually, they planned on it being faster for the 36-inch is the depth. A deeper pipe, they just planned on it taking more time. So at any rate, let's go back to the overall. And so as they've excavated this out, it not only took a lot more material, a lot more patching, but it also took a lot more man hours and equipment hours, which all has a pretty significant cost. Okay, sorry. Let's go down to the tables. Okay, so first table. This is what their overall plan was as they approached the project. Now, hindsight. We've been going through hindsight quite a bit, and Shane even walked us through some of this. It's a situation where how could we have foreseen this? And basically what we would have had to have done is bring a very large track hoe out to the site and dig up a whole length of road and go really deep. To kind of get a feel for what we ended up facing, and we'd have to make sure we got it in these areas where we had the really tough problems. Hindsight, we probably would have done that, but going back to when the decision was made to not do that and dig shallower holes, I kind of get it. It's really intrusive to dig out these county roads or find permission to do that much excavating and the time required to haul that big of an equipment down instead of using just what the city had, which is quite a bit smaller. So that's kind of how we got to where we are is we didn't go the really deep length for a significant amount of time and tried to install something and see what it was like. Anyway, I just say that kind of in defense of the CMGC process. Even then, you don't get it exactly right. You don't perfectly anticipate everything.
I don't want to jump in or not, but I think to support that argument, Chris, I think that is part of the CMGC process. You have a contractor on board. You've decided to take a risk together. You procure the work. You find out something has changed, and now you can have a good conversation about how to do it differently. So I think because of the procurement path that you chose, you were set up to be successful. Had you hard bid this, I think we would be in a different space today. So I think hindsight being what it is, sure, we could have explored the entire thing. We could have dug up the whole thing. We probably could have asked Jackie what the soil looked like out there, and she could have said, hey, you're going to run into this. But that being said, you in good faith procured it. You in good faith negotiated it after the fact, and we're here tonight to talk about where that landed from an equity standpoint.
I can't agree with you more. I think about if we hard bid this, it would be a huge battle right now, I feel like. So at any rate, we are where we are, and I just want to kind of present that. The cost to do this length of pipe that's in the particularly difficult area, this is a $12 million project. It's a $12 million project. So we're talking about a certain area on the west side of I-15 where it was particularly poor soils. The cost that was anticipated through this area is about $900,000. Dewatering, the process that we anticipated doing was about $632,000. could you go to the next slide? This is what actually happened. We got about 35 feet a day on the 30-inch and about 44 feet a day on the 36-inch. The cost to do that with the backfill and everything like that brought it more to about $2.2 million instead of the $900,000. So an additional $1.3 million. And then, and this is, this planning cost includes the change orders that we've already approved. So it's not just the initial cost, but we made sure the change orders are included in that. And then the dewatering, the weeks went up to 75 weeks, and the process became a bit more complicated doing the dewatering. And so you combine, it's mostly the time that really hurt us, but the process became different. And so we actually, or Whitaker actually spent close to $1 million on dewatering instead of 600,000. So you take the 322,000 and 1.3 million, and you go, and actually the change order that's being proposed is $1.6 million. Now, if you go down another slide, the project right now is over budget $2.5 million. But this is what is defensible to bill, and so this is where we came to an agreement, and the contractor is actually sharing the responsibility, like Shane said, and basically we have all learned kind of a lot about construction in this area, but when you do a CMGC project, that's what it's all about. Everyone comes together and takes kind of responsibility for the design. It's not just the engineer pitted against the contractor. We all came up with the design together. So
where are we not? Why did we not pay all of it?
Because we don't have the proof that we need to pay it. We can't just say, you should have made this much money, so we're going to make you good. We have to go through all the process of show us the trenches, show us what you actually did. We have to do all the numbers of this is how much this trench costs, this is how much that costs, and create something that is defensible, because this is a lot of money, and it's public money that we have to be able to look people in the eye and say, this is right, we should pay this. It's legitimate, and some of the overhead and the profit or what have you that we can't quantify, we just can't. We can't do it.
So Chris, is the almost 2.5 that the project's over budget, is it all attributed to this one item?
It's a total 12 million.
Are there other inefficiencies?
Lynn Jorgensen, I'm with Whitaker Construction. Lynn Jorgensen. No, so we looked at two items. We looked at soil conditions, and we looked at the groundwater, and we looked at the effect that those two items specifically had on the tasks. Anything else that went wrong, there's some sections where we went back and we redug some pipe. We made sure it was in spec, where when we ran our camera through it might have been out of tolerance, to make sure that product was as good as possible. Like costs like that or other things that we've attributed outside of those, we've said, no, we're not going to ask for that money. We're literally only looking at the cost directly associated to those two tasks.
So within the confines of those two tasks, the $1.6 million is a fair number.
Correct.
From the contractor.
Yeah. Yep, that covers the cost of that. We've removed our markup off of that. We're not asking for that, but it's what we felt like we could agree with your project management team, that this was the legitimate costs of these items that we could present to you. And the other costs, we said, no, we're not going to ask for that. We're not willing to stand here and do that. So
I guess that's where I was coming from, and what I appreciate hearing from you, Mr. Jorgensen, because the point is I don't expect any business owner to lose $850,000. We're all watching the purse strings, Chris, and I agree. So I just want to make sure that that's justified. So that's why I asked that question.
it certainly was not our expectation, but we recognize what the business we're doing is. There's risk involved, and we're okay with that. We'll be okay. Move forward, and education is expensive, sometimes we say. And so we've learned a lot on this. It's been interesting. Chris alluded a little bit, but when we went through the process, we just completed Provo's West Side Development project. We've really looked at the conditions as pretty similar. Geographically, they're relatively similar. Geotechs are within reason, and the ground conditions are significantly different when we're actually at depth. So
geotech, that is that alluding to
some of the
holes and stuff?
some of the preliminary stuff, bore holes and test pits that we dug.
It's impressive, Mike.
At the front end.
Well,
Don't, Shane.
Solid.
Don't even try and boast him up at all.
Thank you.
Oh.
Some of us just get right to engineer without the education.
Yeah,
Just say,
absolutely.
now you're an engineer.
Most people, yeah. Driver's license works in a lot of cases.
So just,
It's just really hard for me. It's really a struggle to see that big of a
Big
loss.
money.
I'm gonna get it because I've lived in his world before and know what that's like to have to,
and just a quick comment, so I've dug holes all over the state, and if you would have made, I've buried a few things too. If you would have done maybe what you suggested that we went out and done, and I'll promise you, you'd have dug somewhere that wasn't this. You would have never, and I want to thank you for just what you just said, because in a previous project in Mapleton, development company run into a situation that you could not have ever second guessed that had to do with water. They walked away from it, and another company had to come and finish it. So it's not easy to know what you're going to dig. Hopefully we'll know, and in the future we'll remember this little area and stuff like that. But to know this is a part of the plan when you start digging stuff unknown, even though you do pilot holes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Still on track to be done by June then, we're wrapping up?
We were within the last 2 or 3 manhole sections to get complete. And then a couple connections on both ends to put your sewer on your live sewer. I don't know the subdivision name, I apologize. The lift station that is being removed. That connection still has to be made, and then the connection on the top end to the new, is it the Southwest lift station, regional lift station? That connection also has to be made still.
Are there trees still supposed to be coming in there?
Trees coming in and
The sewer lift station? We were promised trees.
Over on Arrowhead Trail, the 8800 South.
Yeah, 8,000.
I think that's in their landscaping plan, isn't it, Dave?
Steve, John,
Uh-huh.
Bill, what were the other?
The names of the trees.
naming them now all.
Yeah, we got a name.
There were,
I'm naming those trees. And applying for historical.
I would have been more thoughtful if I thought I was sleeping under Steve.
Keith, is that in their project, or was that City Crews going to do the landscape?
It's not in there.
Okay, so it's,
And then is there not gonna be a retention pond there then? No, there's also supposed to be a retention pond.
She's talking about
not
down
for that
here.
project, but
She's
eventually
up by
there will be.
Rovier is where she's
Right.
You're like, huh?
Oh, that one? I thought that was the same
No,
one.
this is
Oh,
different.
different
Oh,
one.
the one by Keith's house.
Yes, Keith Peterson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I really appreciate what Brandon said. It's very important that we do not have the reputation of being unfair with contractors. We want the good ones to bid city projects and to come work for us. And if you have the reputation of being fair and working out things change orders that are legitimate, they will continue to come. And Whitaker's done a lot of great projects for us through the years. They're doing another project for us up at the Canyon and just do outstanding work. And so the last thing we would want to do is to harm that relationship.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions for Chris or the applicant here? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve West Interchange Sewer Trunk Line Change Order number 6.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall and seconded by Councilman Argyle. This is just all in favor? It says all in favor. All right, we'll take it. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Okay, Keith.
Thanks, you guys.
Mayor in Santa Quinn, did you say yes or aye? Aye. Oh, times are changing.
Every time you did this, I thought you was waving at me out there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Get it.
Okay, that takes us to item F, Spanish Fork Community Network Building, Hogan Construction Contract.
We would recommend that you table this. We were unable to get that contract in time for this meeting, so.
Motion to table item E.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle to table item E. All in favor, does that have to be roll call? Roll call vote, Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Item E is tabled. Item F, land lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS.
Mayor and council, this is a new land lease agreement, as you just mentioned, for a new cell tower on Canyon Road. I kind of circled the area there. It's where you can see the Walmart to the north up off Spanish Fork Parkway and US 6. And then the new Station 62 is just on the right-hand side. And so there's the old square water tank and the power substation that's there. It's like right in between them. Nick, you want to go to the next photo? It shows the street view. It's this, you can see the existing tower back there. It's that gap between the asphalt and the substation fence. It's 300 square feet, 15 by 20. Pardon?
That's an old
And so it's just a small area they're proposing to lease to build another tower in there. Proposing a monthly rent of $1,800 that'll have 2% increase per year over the life of the 30-year lease. But this is, keep in mind, this is just a land lease. They still have to go through certain land use approvals, like a conditional use permit, site plan approval. And so I would recommend that that the motion include that condition that it's subject to them obtaining all required land use approvals. Any questions on the lease?
Anybody have Singular Wireless? Are they about to get better coverage up in the area or
I
what?
don't know.
Okay. He can't speak to that. All right, any questions for Vaughn? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve New Singular Wireless PCS LLC tower lease agreement at 2505 East Canyon Road.
Motion made, oh, go ahead.
Wait. With the condition that they go through the process,
All
land use process.
Perfect.
Second that.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
That passes.
Motion to adjourn to LBA.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon and seconded by Councilman Argyle to adjourn to the local building authority. This needs to be a roll call vote to go there? Yes. Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
We are in LBA.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle to approve the consent items. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Consent items are approved. We are to 14A, the LBA public hearing. Public hearing to allow public input regarding A, the issuance of and sale of not more than $12,500,000 aggregate principal amount of lease revenue bonds, Series 22. The bonds, and B, potential economic impact that the project described herein to be financed with the proceeds of the bond issued under the act may have on the private sector and related matters. Motion, do you want to explain it before we go into public hearing?
I want to explain what you want me to explain. So if you want me to go into any detail, I'm happy to do that. There's one member of the public here, so if Jackie's interested, I can certainly do it.
Yes, please.
Tell us what you're...
The wrong answer, Jackie. That is strike one. We can do this all over again.
This is for the SFCN, correct?
Yep. This is the next step in the process. Yeah. So SFCN is going to build a building, and we did a parameters resolution in the last couple of meetings where we've outlined this full scope of what SFCN would bond for. Right now, we anticipate that SFCN will bond for $12 million to construct the building. We believe that is in excess of what they will need. So we have negotiated with the Bank of Utah for a direct sale. The reason we have chosen to do a direct sale of bonds is because we have negotiated two specific points that are important at this stage of the game. First of all, we can do what is called a strip call. That is not related to anything in an industrial zone. The strip call has to do with basically re-amortizing a loan after we have identified all of the costs that are needed. So once the construction is completed. We are in a less favorable interest rate climate today than we were a year ago, and every day the interest rates are getting worse and worse. So we have been able to lock in an interest rate of, would you mind pulling that up? Go to the bottom of that image for me. I want to say 3.72, 3.73, which is more than twice what we were getting a year ago, which is really hard to swallow. Let's look down here. 3.73% true interest cost. In the history of bonds, 3.73 is actually very good, certainly slightly below average in the history of municipal bonds. But in the last year, it is a little bit higher than we would have seen otherwise. But rates continue to go up. So this allows us to lock in a rate. We can re-amortize, so we think the construction will be less than $12 million. So let's say at the end of the project, we only spend $11 million. We can take $1 million and give it back. They'll re-amortize the loan, and we can then redo our payments based on that lower.
Interest hold then?
With the same interest rate, yep. One time, yeah. Which is a unique feature, which is, again, why we typically, you could go to a competitive bid. Councilman Gordon just went through a bid process at the with the solid waste district, and it's a good process to do, but you don't have some of these flexibilities. You certainly may not get them. So this gives us that flexibility. And then
the estimated time that they think they'll have the building completed, construction will be completed, is 2 years?
No, it's a let's call it less than 18 months, 16 to 18 month build. So we'll have the final plans probably by the end of July. No, end of July. We'll have the plans done.
Oh, really?
We can go to bid in August or September. If we feel like it's a good market time for us to go August or September, if we want to wait until January, we can choose what is best for us. And there are reasons to bid immediately, and there are reasons to wait. You just, at some point, you're kind of gambling, right? If we wait 6 months, is it going to get worse? If we wait 6 months, is it going to get better? At the moment, my crystal ball on that kind of stuff is fuzzy at best. But right now, it's still kind of, you better bid now, because 6 months from now, it's worse. That's at least been what things, how things have been. So, and then the second feature that we've negotiated here is the ability to refinance anytime. Most of the time, when you get one of these kinds of municipal bonds, we have maybe a 10-year call period where you can't refinance until year 10. This doesn't have any of that. So consider your mortgage, you can have you don't have any prepayment penalty immediately. So if in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, the rates do go down and we're someplace where we can get a better return on that rate, then we can refund that bond, and reap that interest savings. So this gives us a couple of really great features which we really like. Just today, we were able to negotiate a few basis points lower to this amount, and just today, rates were going up. And so we still feel like we're getting probably the best of all the world right now. So that's the basis for this. You'll notice, if you'll go, I don't like this page, go up. Yeah, so we've structured the bond repayment to be a little bit of a stair step. SFCN has some debt obligations that they need to pay to the electric fund the next couple of fiscal years, and so they'll do that, and then their repayments will jump up a little bit after that. So this gives them a little bit of a launch point to the full bond amount, and this is certainly within the revenue structure of SFCN to repay. No rate increases, no additional anything there. They can, as they finish the fiber to the home project and the fiber ring project, they have the funds to do this.
Great. Thank you, Seth. I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing about this.
Mayor, this may be one where you choose.
To hand it over? Perfect. Can I hand that over to?
Yep.
It's Mayor Pro Tem, but in this, it's got
Can I
to be
get a
chairman,
motion?
vice chairman, vice chairman.
I just want these two down here to do things because they're feeling left out. Yeah.
Shane?
Yeah. I move we move into a public hearing.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call, is it all? It doesn't say roll call.
All in favor?
Okay,
Yes.
all in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, anyone from the public that would like to address this? Okay. Seeing none, can you entertain a motion to go out of public
Let's-
hearing?
Yeah, I move we go to a public hearing.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
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 We welcome you back, Mayor, I think.
Motion to
Right.
reconvene back to city council.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion to reconvene back to city council, by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Argyle, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, who was the second one?
Argyle, is that what I said? Hopefully, okay.
Maybe as just a wrap up on this, we will be going to, we'll be going through the bond process probably within the next 2 weeks, as we finalize docs with the bonding agency, Bank of Utah, and we should have those funds secured certainly within the next month.
Okay. Thank you, Seth. Item number 16A, agenda requests and donations.
Thank you. We'll be brief on this, but the purpose of this discussion is maybe twofold: educate council and staff about the number of requests that we receive and the process that we follow. So if you'll pull up the city website link first. We receive, and our recorder, Tara Silver, can be the one to kind of testify, if you will. We receive a number of agenda requests. It's certainly on the website. We invite the public to, if they have a reason to participate or have questions of the mayor and council, they can submit a request there. Tara will report to you that she receives probably one request a week, maybe two a week, and yet you don't have those here at city council meeting, and that is on purpose. We have, for a long time, had these agenda requests, which some people just don't know, how do I get my question answered? And so if they think that they need to address the mayor and council, then this is that avenue that we make sure that they can have that voice heard. What Tara will do is reach out to an individual and say, looks like you have an issue that's related to parks. Would it be of value for you to reach out to Dale Robinson or somebody like that? Or maybe it's an issue related to streets, Chris Thompson, Public Works Director. The whole point of that process is to ensure the quickest answers possible for the resident. So let's say we get a request tonight. Let's say we get a request yesterday. It may be 2 weeks before we have the next council meeting, and then that resident is waiting 2 weeks. Then they come to this meeting, and as you've participated, they may stand up, express whatever that concern or question or thought is, and if it is indeed some issue for Parks and Rec or Public Works, then you oftentimes have said something like, Dale, will you get in touch with the resident and start working on the issue? And all we've done is make that resident wait 2 weeks for the eventual direction that you're going to give them of communicate with the respective staff. That's been the process for a number of years, and staff is very comfortable with that. But from time to time, we feel like maybe the elected officials aren't. Not that I've had this feeling from any of you, but it's been a long time since we've had this discussion, and certainly we've got a lot of new faces. Frankly, I'm not sure if we've had the conversation about this in the last 6 years, so it's been a while. Are you comfortable with that? Again, we're not trying to keep the public from addressing the mayor and council. Our goal, our desire is to give them the answers to the questions that they have, address those concerns and issues as fast as we can so that they're well served or best served rather than waiting and having that direction eventually be given to them to talk to so-and-so. A secondary purpose, and we have talked about this one, I know, is to limit some of the need to air private issues in the public. Sometimes a resident thinks that the only way they can have this issue be addressed is to come here and air some issue that may cast the resident in a negative light, or eventually in a negative light, may cast some other neighbor in some other resident in a negative light, and that's certainly not, the purpose of this forum, we think. And so it allows us to address those issues in some less public forum, and most of the time we achieve a good result. Sometimes, it does come here, but with that kind of background, Tara, is that what you would say about one request a week on average? 1.5, half to 20 to 50?
Just don't understand the process, and they think the first step would be to come to you guys when that wouldn't necessarily get them what they want.
You see this by email. In fact, if you're paying attention to your laptops, and you may have seen, you just got an email from a resident asking a question about a trail behind their property near the high school. Great question, but they don't need to wait for 2 weeks. If that were an agenda request, we don't need to wait 2 weeks for them to get some direction and start being able to address those issues.
So I guess that was my question, is when someone does submit an agenda request, are we made aware of what they're asking? Are we brought into the loop? Should we be? Is it educational for us to know how those questions are being answered? What are your thoughts there?
Great question. I would say the answer to those questions are no, you're probably not. And it would be, I think, very instructive for you to know what those questions are and what the answers are. I think that would be really insightful for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only concern would be, and I think what Tara says, most of them are just calling, trying to find out something or a question, not necessarily, but they're thinking, I just need to go before the council and or whatever. But I also don't want to ever have somebody that wants to speak to us and feel you're intervening.
No, if that's the case, and Tara is kind of the guardian of that door, if you will. If they say, no, I want to visit with the mayor and council, that we never keep them from that.
Always leave that open as an option.
Yeah.
If you don't feel like you got what you needed, you're welcome to come back and I'll put you on the agenda.
And then there's that as well. So some of them say, no, I want to talk to the mayor and council, and they don't want to talk to Seth or Dale or Chris. And so they never do that route. We want to go here. I want to go here first. The second is you will always get those that aren't satisfied if they weren't satisfied with whatever they got, because they still feel like that's the appeal, if you will, to that course of action.
Well, every one of our meetings has a public comment
Correct.
period.
That as well. Yeah.
So they may not be formally on the agenda, but they can comment.
Absolutely.
If they disagreed with what you got to say.
Yeah.
I'm with Chad. As long as no one's being discouraged, I'm fine with having that initial conversation, which I trust that they're not being discouraged. So I do like the idea of some sort of summary of here are the requests we had and how we dealt with them. But
And more than anything, just so I can know if somebody approaches me on the street with a similar question, I know
it's
how to
fairly
answer it.
educational for us, right? Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree. And we can develop a process wherein we can give you that information. I think that would be instructive. And I think it would be helpful.
Your weekly email.
Something like that. Yeah.
Nick, does this coincide
There's
with
a
how
forum
many
there.
texts we're receiving? Those are still going up. People are.
We get a lot more of those than agenda requests.
Yeah, that is true.
More than one or two a week.
This is just one of those more it feels like it's more formal, right? And we try to have as many roads as possible to give answers and a voice. And so we, this is one of those. And I think it's probably not, if you ask my personal or professional opinion, I'd say this isn't a great idea because, number one, every meeting has a public comment section, so you don't need this formal nature. And two, it's not usually the right forum to have their question addressed. But it still is, at least for some people, it feels like it's the right one, so it captures some demographic, and that works. Okay, the second one is donation requests, and this one, if you'll pull up the link to our finance policy. We receive donation requests, and a donation request is two things. One, actual money. They want us to give something to some entity. And the second type is, and the more common type, is some kind of a waiver. Did it not link you right to where I wanted you to go? Oh, I'm sorry. Stand by.
2140. I knew that. Yeah, 21420.
You had it memorized.
21420. Thanks. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't send you the bookmark. So this is in our financial policy. We've got a donation and waiver application. In order to do a donation, the city's finance policy requires that it be accompanied with a public hearing. Essentially, you're giving away the public treasury, right? You're giving away the public's money. And so to do that, the legislature has advised or required that we should have the public's input on should we or should we not give that away. You received an email maybe a month ago now for a company or a group that had held some kind of an event in one of our facilities at the sports park. It's a charity run of some kind. And they had such a great experience here because we didn't have any red tape except for the finish line for them to run through, that it was easy for them to have the event. And they felt like it was a really successful event, i.e. no or little to no expenses here versus, say, what the process was in some other city, that they want to make it an annual event here. More so, they want you to donate money to whatever their cause is. And we get donation requests for good causes, not every week, but I would say probably 15 to 20 a year. Again, most of those are to waive some kind of a fee, say it's at the fairgrounds. Can we do some event for veterans or for special needs people, and will you waive the fee to rent the Ponderosa or the High Chaparral or the arena or this or that? Maybe some fee to donate, waive a park rental. Those aren't as hard to stomach because that's just maybe opportunity cost, if you will, lost revenue that way. Then you get to the next level where they want us to, maybe the gathering requires a police officer or 2 or 3, it requires an ambulance or some kind of actual hard costs. Now the public is spending money for this charitable event. And do we want to do that? Again, that's something that policy requires us to have a public hearing. We typically do these with the budget. And then the third request type, again, is just some hard donation of money. Can you give money to, say, the Halverson Museum? They want you to finance the next $500,000 or the last $500,000, and will you make some kind of a donation? That's not real. Just, they were here a couple of weeks ago. This is kind of difficult for staff, and sometimes, and none of you, but in the history of the city, that can be difficult because elected officials may have some kind of an issue that is special to them, pertinent to them. Maybe it's a friend of theirs who has cancer and there's some kind of a fun run or whatever. And so it does put you sometimes in an awkward position to say, can the city donate this? And then you have to say yes or no. And so we do have this finance policy out. And so I want to put it, number one, this is on the website. There is an application they can go through. And if they communicate with Dale or with Jordan, Jordan or Dale will immediately, the first step is, we can't donate anything, and they'll list the reasons why without, and they'll list the reasons how. This protects all of us because that does make most of those seeking a donation step away because, we don't have time to wait for a public hearing, for a budget or something like that. I'm not really setting the table a whole lot deeper than this, but we'd love your thoughts. This is something that causes us as staff a lot of concern because we could just do donated events every week, especially in the parks and on the trails. You could have a fun run in a park on the trail probably every Saturday.
It's funny, like, I'm gonna say like 10 years ago, there was a city employee that needed a heart transplant. And I get a call on council day from Councilman Davis, and he says, I need you to bring $50 to council meeting. And I said, okay. He goes, we're just going to pay the fee to use the city facility because our policy is such a pain in the butt. We're
Is that what
not
he
going
said?
to do it. Absolutely. He had maybe more colorful language. No. So we did it, right? So 6 people, $50 each, $300.
That is also an unsustainable practice too, right?
And
Yeah,
we
don't-
didn't
are
tell
you setting
anybody.
us up for-
We didn't tell anybody at the time, right? I'm just saying, like, didn't need to be known. We just said, hey, this is just easy, right? And so, but it's like, maybe that $300 could have went to help, right? Like when common sense is like, how do you know? It's one of our own.
So the process does allow for you to decide, it's one of our own, we want to do this. The challenge is if there isn't a process, then it really can be a free-for-all. And this is open season on every event that you have, we'll use. And these parks aren't free to maintain, the facilities aren't free to build. And is it really you as residents, is it really your place to be the ones that are actually paying for it, for so-and-so's whatever, who gets to deem that meets the whatever standard you might have. But yeah.
I would also say whatever Dale's department's doing, I don't hear a
No.
lot. And I think that is a result of, Dale's
Anything
group
good,
is saying.
or you don't hear anything
No, they're not coming to us, right, and saying, hey, we want to have the park for X, Y, Z. And there are
If
a
they
lot of
start,
reasons.
yeah, if they start through the Parks and Rec Department, then they will be educated on what this is, and they then decide if they think it meets, whoever the applicant is, they will decide if they think it's worth it or not. You probably hear more from people that are associated with you. If it's your peer group that has some connection to a need or some kind of a donation, then you typically would hear about those because they might be calling you first. And then that puts you potentially in that awkward place of, what do you do? And I would just suggest, if you ever get that phone call, call the Parks and Rec office. They have a process that is followed, and whether this fits that or not, but start at the Parks and Rec office. You could always start there.
I like the way we have a process. It's a good backstop to chaos. And it would be, right? It would be when I deem it's justified, I argue my case in front of these guys, and that's all it takes. So I like that we have it. I think it's definitely needed. We are government agents. We're the government. We should have policies that we have to follow and follow every single time. So I'm good with it. As much as I will hate it when I want to do something, I still, on the record, as I like it.
We will recall this date.
I'm sure that we will.
May
I'm sure that I
17th.
will. Someone will point that out. Do you remember when? And I will not remember
May
that.
17th, yeah.
Right, Kev.
No, I was just gonna ask where on the website is it, but I just found it, so we're good.
Any other questions on this? I don't know when Mr. Robinson got here, but did it,
8:30.
anything I missed, Dale?
That's generous.
No, I was
It was
gonna-
like 8:44.
Is there anything I missed in? Uh-oh.
No, he really-
Shoot,
I
I
was
shouldn't have
gonna-
He's
asked.
gonna tell you. He's gonna tell you what you missed.
To come up behind you, because you usually do me, because you have something to correct me on. No, there isn't anything that he's missed. One thing that I do want to say, though, is when we made this policy, it was to protect you guys and to protect us. Because you guys tell me, which I know all of you guys have a heart, right? And every cause is going to be worthy. Every cause. So you don't want to sit in judgment over which should we or which shouldn't we, and neither do we, which is exactly why we made this policy, because we don't feel like that should be on the citizens' back to have to fund everybody's cause, because everybody's cause is worthy. And that's really why we put it in place, and it works, as long as we all work it together. And we get quite a few requests for these. We would rather they come through us through a special events policy or this type of a policy, but the fact that we have this policy that once a year, you can come through the budget process and get your requests met, and we've done that. Most of them, as was mentioned, if they realize, we need to do something quicker than that, so, that won't work for us. But we certainly don't want to get you guys in a situation where you have to start being the judge over whose fundraiser is more, and once you open that can of worms, you have no defense, right? We got to fund them all.
The defense
So
for
it
me
makes it
is
hard.
if it's worthwhile enough, it does come up here once a year. We can discuss it and put it on there if it's a reoccurring or a one-time thing, and that's in the public's eye,
Right.
not a one-off. So I like the policy that puts it in the public's eye. There's, Councilman Gordon shared that incident. There's more than a few times that people have called me over the last 8 years, and I know others have been involved in the same way, that it's like, no, we have a policy, you can start somewhere, well, it needs to be quicker than that. Well, let me help you fundraise. Let's go out and get the $100 that it takes to rent the facility, and let's see if we can get that. Here's 50 to start, right? So it's better that we don't do one-offs, but it's the policy that's in place to get this up in front of the public.
Well, and it's hard, right? When it's somebody that personally knows
Sure.
you feel like, I want to be able to do something for them. It's just a protection.
But even then, think about the ones that are as valuable that don't know one of us.
Exactly.
Right? They don't have
That's
any
why
access to us.
I'm
That's
saying
not
this is a protection for everybody. So.
Good reminder.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, and let me just pick up on what you said, which I think is important. It is a path, and a couple of weeks ago, we had one where as we started the conversation with them, we figured this is a big deal, this is a community issue, and let's bring that group to the council for you to have the discussion about the Halverson Center being able to use the airport to do what they're doing. And I don't know that there was a whole lot of disagreement about that. And so it is a path, and it creates that. So I think we think it works well. We just want to make sure we're on the same page with you. Thank you.
Motion to go into closed session for land transaction and reasonably imminent litigation.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon.
Second.
And seconded by Councilman Argyle to go into closed session. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
And Councilman Euler?
Yes.
We are adjourned into closed session. Thanks for joining us.
When you're the first one to have to say yes, it's hard to say yes.
Do we have closed session?
Freeze a little bit. You freeze up.